I can't put in the words how I feel. Where have you been? Nobody knows me like you do. Nobody don't love me quite like you can. Even deny it every time I try it. When I look in my eyes, you know I'm lying.
Hi guys, thank you, Terry. Y'all, I just realized I was supposed to be live. Okay, so I decided to make this called Missing While Black in the South. I was sitting here and I was like, oh my God, like I was just, thinking, I was like, oh man, we can go back and discuss this situation. So y'all go here to this quiet, ain't nobody here. This is the perfect time. Shout out to my son. It is his 15th birthday, so he is out with his auntie. And I decided to make this live because it's so important. I thought about it. I said, you know what? It's a lot of missing black, people in the South that have majority have not been found, not been searched for. And I remember in the early 2000s, between for me, because I'm an 80s baby, late 80s, grew up in the 90s. And it was never reported like that until the early 2000s because people would speak on the situation. So, and I'm going to do it as this while I'm out this week and then before I go to work. Today we're going to start with missing black, missing while black in the South. Tomorrow it will be missing while black in the North and Midwest. And then we're going to end it with missing while black in America. I feel like we only get coverage because we push it, and I don't feel like we get the coverage like I'm sitting here on Netflix, scrolling Netflix, and they're about to have a gap, or was it Amazon Prime? Because I was watching Harlem, by the way, and it was the Gabby Pedo story, and I was like, when do we have a story about us? When do we have a story about us missing, or do we get a document series? The only time we get a document series is when it comes to Fatal Attraction or For My Man. We've had a couple of Lifetime docuseries. We had a couple of, true stories on BET. We only celebrated through the Black networks. Lifetime does a little here and there, but when do we have all these series on Netflix? And if it's on Netflix, no one know about it, or Amazon Prime. If it's on Amazon Prime, it's not pushed like that. When do we get that? When can we have that as well? So I wanted to go and share some statistics about being missing in the South. And this has been going on, especially in the South, since segregation. Let's be honest. Like I said, we just started getting coverage in the early 2000s. It's been going on in the South for a very, very long time. And I think because of the segregation that happened majority in the South, that when it becomes missing, we have a long history of missing for years, and we're never being looked at because of that situation. And it's sad. It's very sad. We're still pushing. Hold on, y'all. I'm sorry. Here's somebody. Give me Cause she got to put the money in there for the dryer. Just put them in the dryer.
You didn't put them in there?
They're in the washer. Your auntie gonna go with you. She's gonna go with you.
Malik!
I didn't even know your bag was on there. I'm sorry.
Malik, you
Girl. Oh, y'all heard that? My bad, y'all. So, I thought I put it on mute. Okay. Let's see. So, missing person statistic. Okay, so Houston, Texas covered this. If you guys don't know, Houston, Texas is mostly near the border. Now, what's really, really close to the border is El Paso, Texas. And I don't know, let me look that up because I'm not sure if El Paso has had more. I'm sorry, if El Paso had more trafficking with missing people because they're more closer to the border. It's more closer to get victims over to Mexico. Okay, we're gonna be honest. Like El Paso is literally like if you go over the mountain, you're there to Mexico, to Cita Juarez, I think that is. I hope I said it right. Probably butchered it. Black people disappearing, disregarding, becoming crisis. What's being done about it? Okay. So it says more readers are now acknowledging the crisis of blacks going missing. Blacks going missing and receiving little or no public attention. So California has passed into law the Ebony Alert. California is the only state that I know has passed Ebony Alert. And one thing about California, shout out to Gavin. They can say what they want to say about Gavin Newsom, but Gavin has passed a lot of things for the Black community. Gavin has done a lot for the Black community in California. And a lot of people like to overshadow that, say Gavin doesn't do. No, Gavin has done a lot, including the mayors. And I guess because they're white, that they don't get the pass of the things that he's done. Gavin has made it to where it's easy to get a place in California, as long as you make the money. You're not supposed to look for certain things that they continue to look for to keep you from getting a place. He's passed the Ebony Law. He's done a lot, and I wish people just give him his credit. But I guess because he's doing for minorities, and he's not focused on the rich that they want him to be focused on, they discredit him a lot. And I don't like that. So shout out to Gavin. He's doing let me tell you something. I had the money, I'd be in California right now. I would, because he's done a lot. I've heard that California homeless, their clothes are great. Homeless shelters have made space. They do a lot. Okay? It says our members too, says the co-founder. Sorry, hold on, give me a moment. It says the co-founder of Black and Missing Foundation, Natalie Wilson, but actions from the masses don't always support the summit. 40% of the missing population of people of color, and I asked any other viewers to name a person of color who was dominating the news cycle. They can also they can't because it typically doesn't happen. That is true. California is the first state to create a alert notification system addressing that crisis. Ebony Alert, similar to Amber Alert, will notify the public of missing blacks, a group is prominently disregarded when it comes to coverage. There's a need for an Ebony Alert because people of color disappearing at an alarming rate, and typically their cases are under the radar when it comes to media coverage and getting law enforcement resources. That is true. It's the same as when I tell people Black women become the most unalived in America because it is mostly by people they know. And I have said this before, and I said it before. I said to someone that was in politics, and I basically said when they said, "Oh, Black babies are important." Black babies are important only to drive the force of economic value. I'm going to say it again. Black babies are only important to drive the force of economic value. And the reason why is because that is the driven state of anything with government assistance or anything that's driven the fact of financial for the economic that doesn't support us economically. And I've also had this conversation to where Black women are mostly being unalived by the father of their children or someone they know because most Black men do not want to take responsibility of taking care of children, either with finances. There are no resources for Black single mothers when they become single mothers. And also, even if he tell you he want a baby, trust me, the majority of the times they run off, right? If they're not married. Also, there are women who have been in abusive relationships. They get pregnant and become single mothers because they were abusive marriage. There are no, and we're going to keep it a buck over here, anything regarding kids, we have noticed that the government does not give a damn. And we're going to be honest, because they're trying to stop the food stamps, the Medicaid, and they're also driving to stop the protection for children in schools. Where I live in Texas, I'm hearing in Texas that majority of schools are closing. Education is being affected. So why should we as Black people should economically push force for us to have children when schools are coming to be closed and the education for our children are being driven to don't matter? So that comes also with missing children. There's not an educational standard. If we paid attention, shout out to Am when she talked about how, that there are missing children in Detroit. We're going to get into that. Why is there becoming a runaway instead of being put as missing? There's not education on things for parents of what to do, especially Black children, and what can be done. There's no protection because they do not care of Black children and Black women. It is going to become a point soon into this year, this whole 4 years, we're going to be honest. I keep it real over here. They're not going to care about Black men. They done showed us time and time again. So I feel like our community needs to be educated. We are them. Let me tell you something. Hold on, let me get this cough out. We're the most diverse community as a Black community, but we're also lack of certain educations within our trauma into our community. And I feel like we need to be more educated when it comes to missing children, protecting our children, and what can we do to not just be an economic force of keep pushing our babies. And this is why I encourage women, I don't care how many kids you have, please put a hope on pushing out your babies right now. Please. If this is your first child, you got a man to protect you, that's fine. But this is come to hands, may tell. Please be careful. Men, I heard a lot of men, especially Black men, say, I'm not having no more kids right now. We're at a hope. I need Black women to get into that hope as well, because We just being pushed as an economic thing for our children. And then when they go missing, we don't have what we need, the protection to find our children. Okay? So that's why I decided to do this Missing While Black. And even with men in the South, the men don't get coverage. Like, how many reports have we heard of men missing? They go missing and then it goes quiet because nobody pushing unless it's TikTok pushing it in the Black community, or it's Instagram pushing it in the Black community, or it's Facebook pushing it in the Black community. We have to make our own lane to push these things because they're not pushing to fight. We have to fight harder for our loved ones to be found. Then, you know what I'm saying? It sucks. They don't care. But we hear all these stories. So that's why I say I give my kudos to Gavin in California, because I don't care what anybody say about California. I always say California, between Atlanta and California, are the most predominantly, in New York City, especially Harlem, the most predominantly Black culture driven force than it is anywhere else. And it sucks because they do a lot for the Black community and they target the Black community. So I want to go into, let's see if we can go and look for any statistics on Black men missing in the South. And it happens. It said Black men mental health. And if y'all want me to do that, let me know in the comment section. We could talk about Black men's mental health as well, because it is very impactful. Okay, this is crazy. I'm finna share this with y'all. Just like it's women missing, there are Black men. And this number is ridiculous. So it says 100,000 of Black men are missing in the South, and the issue is particularly acute in cities like Ferguson, Missouri, North Charleston, South Carolina. In New York, almost 120,000 Black men between the ages of 25 and 54 are missing. In Chicago, 45,000 are missing, and more than 30,000 are missing in Philadelphia. New York Times noted the street violence, HIV, and incarceration have removed nearly 1.5 million Black men between the ages of 25 and 54 from society. Early deaths, many Black men go missing due to early deaths, incarceration, they're behind bars, or discrimination. Men are often disregarded and not given the same coverage as white people when they go missing. Where's the lie? This number is crazy. Let's see the statistics on Black women missing in the South. And then we're going to go into children. Let's read what the NAACP has to say. Okay. According to the National Crime Information, nearly 40% of those who have disappeared often are Black. However, many are alleging that the media mostly only focus on white women who disappear to the African American women and their children. The Black and Missing Foundation reported in 2020 that a total of 273,985 minorities were reported missing in the United States, of 944 for all races. They also reported that most of them disappeared in New York, Georgia, North Carolina, Maryland, Florida. Hundreds of African American families were left painful details of wondering what was happening to their loved ones, and many Black women and children have been missing for decades. And as currently more than 64,000 Black women remain missing across United States. Despite representing 12.58% of the population, Black Americans accounted for nearly 226,000, or 34% of missing persons reported in 2012. According to the FBI National Crime Information Center, the comparison, with other racial groups is unfavorable. Whites and Hispanics are combined of 80% of the population, account for 60% of missing persons. Okay, so let's break down this 80%, and I want to explain to y'all. Okay, I'm gonna put a little story with you. I know how it goes. Most Hispanics, if you're a brown-skinned Latino, brown-skinned Afro-Latino, they do not put you with the 80% of white folks. And this is why I say Hispanics are the most that has put us backwards, because they're experienced what we experience. Just like we experienced the paper bag. If you don't pass the paper bag, you can't go out there and pass for white. Okay? So let me break it down to you. And I grew up learning this. Back in the 30s, between the 30s, the 20s, and the 40s, I think 20 to 50, maybe 20 to 60s, right? Not long ago. It's been going on for years. This is why colorism exists in the Afro-Latina, in the African community, the Black community. We're going to keep it real. Even in Africa. We're going to talk about that another time. They have the same issue. Back then, if you can pass a brown paper bag, you can walk around and marry a white man with money. Like now, they don't care. Back then, to pass and for them not to get in trouble or you to get anything done, you can marry a white man with money that was of status. You got the jobs. You got the entertaining, acting. You got certain things because you can pass, right? Now let's look at the Latinas and what they're going through now. If they can pass a white, and this is why it was so critical for us to tell them, right? If they can pass, and y'all can share this with your Latina friends, please. If they can pass a white paper bag, brown paper bag, and they were a fair-skinned like us, we talk about the fair skins, they're considered 80% white. That's why it's combined, because they can pass a paper bag. Now the ones they can't pass the paper bag, the color code, they color code them. We're going to keep it real. Darker shade brown to darker, they can pass for Black. They're going to put you with Afro-Latina, you're Black. If you're darker. If they brown skin or somewhere in there, they're going to put them as Latino. Let me give you a minute to think about that. Excuse me. Let me give you a minute to think about that. We going backwards because they're already in the backwards mindset of where we were years ago. Now they done caught up, but that's a whole nother live we're going to get into that a lot of people ain't talking about. We're going to do another live on that too. That's why they passed that 80%. When you break down the numbers and age of the Black missing financial reports, that 37% of missing minors, 37%, and 28%. 0.2% of missing adults in 2013 were Black. No fewer than the 270,000 minorities have gone missing since 2010. 135,000 of whom were Black and 64,000 were Black women and girls were missing nationwide. And the number continued to grow. The number continues to grow because we're not getting coverage. There is miseducation with grooming, don't touch me there, in actual advances. There are more of the Black community having financial crisis right now on some areas, and there's no education. There are more single homes than there are single broken homes than there are non-single broken homes. And this is why this number is creating further. And I wish that it was never more single broken homes out there. Some they're being married, kept together, regardless of the situation. They're gonna make it work. And this is why a lot of the people in relationships are making it work, because either children are running away or children are being easily groomed and easy to get into because mommy or daddy at work and nobody's paying attention. This is why we have to pay attention to our children. This is why it's so important. Like I said it, I say it again. Since they took away Roe versus Wade, no, it wasn't for us, but it was for us for our children to be groomed easily by disgusting men and women who groom children because they can't control men or women. I'm going to say it again. It has made it easy for them to groom our children. You got children that are in church right now who are, or schools, or at home, that they're getting ready to marry off to a wealthy older man because of they don't have nothing else. Just like that young girl that's 18 that married that pastor in his 60s. She was groomed for that man. And then when they get caught up, they go missing. There was another woman, I didn't even get the full story. I was trying to get the full story. It happened months ago, and I could never get the full story. I reported about her a little bit. She was pregnant, had 2 children, pregnant with 1 child from another man in Florida. He unalived her in front of her children while pregnant because he didn't want the baby. This is the wrong time to even be talking about children. Let's just be honest. According to the National Crime Information Center, there were 107,899 missing children under the age of 18 in the United States in 2016 in this county. Yes, and the missing reports are heard about immediate rises concern, criticizing a The resolution requests the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People Research new and recent updates on the African American women and children are missing. But it further resolves that NAACP hosts town, so they're hosting town meetings to have discussions about this. Let's go to the Black women. When we say Black women, right? Where they put it with women and children. Let's see. Okay, what percentage? Over 36% are Black women. In 2022, of the 271,493 girls and women reported missing, 9,924, over 30% was Black. And it comprised only 14% of the U.S. female population at the time. So let's see how many go missing a year. And risen. Here we go. Let's click on it. It won't show up, but we're going to read it. While the fear of being kidnapped may persist for one's entire life, in 2022, the number of missing persons under the age of 21 was much higher than those 21 and over, with 206,371 females under 21 missing, 64,956 females over the age of 21 reported missing. Hold on, y'all. This is statistics. This is crazy. This is crazy. Shine the light on the crisis of missing or murdered Black. This is crazy. And people think it's a hoax. People think this is the Office of Justice. You hear me? This is what they had to say. The United States faces a deeply troubling crisis that has not received the attention it deserves. The alarming number of missing or murdered Black women and girls, despite the devastating impacts on families and communities through the country. The epidemic of missing or murdered Black women and girls had largely remained a silent one. It is time to confront the issue with urgency and coordinate responses, it warns. On November 12, 2024, the Department of Justice Office of Justice Program held a national convening in Washington, D.C., focused on addressing the crisis of missing or murdered Black women and girls. The event, hold on, I missed my place, y'all. Give me a minute. So they held an event for missing and murdered unalive Black women. The event brought family members, survivors, law enforcement, advocate journalists, state leaders, along with federal agencies, colleagues and all of that. They talked about the percentage, they're raising awareness, they're starting programs. A lot of Black journalists who advocate to tell the stories of missing and unalive Black people through their organization platforms. So by us coming on to YouTube, discussing this issue, it helps. Also, I do want to do coverage on stories of missing Black women and people, and I want to talk about it a lot more. So I'm going to see, I don't care how old it is, we're going to discuss it, decades, whatever. But that because YouTube and TikTok since last year, probably a year before, since COVID, has covered these stories, it has helped the Department of Justice over at Washington, D.C., and this is why we were fighting, has issues. So I'm going to play this video right here. It's a discussion, and then so this is a 40-minute video. So copyright disclaimer under this section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use of the purpose, such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use prohibited by the copyright statuses that might otherwise be infringing nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips in the balance of fair use. Now, let's get into it.
Well, thank you so much to my federal colleagues and partners. We are very fortunate to have this distinguished panel of federal leaders here with us to provide their reflections and response to the discussions that we've heard today, which have been truly fantastic. Can we just give another round of applause? Thank you. On the panel, we have Brent Cohen, OJP's Acting Assistant Attorney General, Rosie Hidalgo, the Director of DOJ's Office on Violence Against Women, Stephanie Hines, the Director of the Executive Office for United States Attorneys, and last.
Before we finish, I have a question. And I don't have no problem with nobody who they voted for. But I wanted the people think of this and wonder why the 92% drove that vote so hard because of this. Let's be honest. Because it's more crucial now that a lot of people are missing. Okay.
but not least, Shondell Dawson, Director of the Office of Family Violence Prevention Services in the Administration for Children and Families at the Department of Health and Human Services. Okay. My thanks to you all for being here today. Brent, I'm going to start with you.
I'm going to let this play, y'all. I'm going to do my laundry real quick, and I'll be right back, okay?
My boss. In my opening remarks, I mentioned OJP's program offices and our mandate, but what specific programs or resources does OJP provide or support that address the epidemic of missing and murdered Black women and girls? And we've heard some of it today, but.
We have heard some of it, and thank you, Linda, and thanks to everybody who has spoken today and everyone who's been in attendance throughout this really just moving discussion and conversation. I have the privilege right now of talking about work that is happening across OJP that is being led by just incredible career staff, but also by presidentially appointed leaders at each of the offices. And I want to recognize Liz Ryan and Chris Rose and Carlton Moore, and Nancy Levine couldn't be with us today, but I know she's been really engaged in this work as well. And so those four offices I'm going to talk about, their offices in just a moment here. So with the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, we have work. We heard so much today about the classification of runaway versus missing and the implications that that has for whether law enforcement resources are dedicated or not dedicated to finding a young person when they go missing. We also heard about the connection between the child welfare system and the juvenile justice system, and the increased likelihood that a young person might run away or go missing from one of those facilities. And so OJJDP is doing just incredible work in this space around trying to build protective factors around young people, about trying to cut off, frankly, the pathways that would lead someone into a juvenile justice facility, into a child welfare facility to begin with, by helping to build supportive communities and homes. So just a few things here. One, OJJDP funds and provides training and technical assistance around the Amber Alert program, and is working with stakeholders and communities across the country around what that looks like. Similarly, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which we heard referenced earlier today, OJJDP is the primary funder of that organization and the work that they're doing to reduce the number of young people who go missing, but also to help find and bring home kids when they go missing. And in fact, there's a new partnership that was launched this year, and credit to Liz's vision on this, called the Children's Justice Project. And that's a partnership with NCMEC, with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, because we know there are lots of young people, lots of children who have been found but have yet to be identified. Mm-hmm. And so we have families waiting for answers, and we have the ability as a nation to provide some of those answers, and we're not doing it. And so the Children's Justice Project is going to accelerate the identification of young people who have been found but not yet identified. And we know that those kids are disproportionately likely to be children of color, disproportionately likely to have been impacted or have been involved with the child welfare system or the juvenile justice system. And so these are kids who may not have had the resources that they've needed, as we've heard, in terms of the search and everything that predated that. And so the least we can do is provide those resources now to try to bring closure and answers for families. And so that's the Children's Justice Project. But similar vein, the Child Victimization Prosecution Project, which is a new effort about providing training and technical assistance to help prosecutors understand how to work with children who may be victims, who are victims, but may be in the child welfare system or in the juvenile justice system, and therefore may not be the perfect victim for which a prosecutor to work with. Mm-hmm. How do we work with those kids? How do prosecutors work with those children as victims? And how do we begin to prosecute abuse that is taking place inside the child welfare system or inside juvenile justice facilities? Because as we think about the myriad of reasons why a young person might run away from a child welfare system placement or a juvenile justice out of home placement, part of that, not the whole reason, but part of that is because we know that abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse is all too common in these facilities. And so, again, the Child Victimization Project. And then finally, the partnership between OVC, the Office for Victims of Crime, and OJJDP around increasing access to victim services for youth and juvenile justice facilities. Again, part of what we know about young people, particularly young people in out-of-home placement, is too often they themselves have been victimized and been victims of crime, and yet are not necessarily receiving the services they need. And so without receiving the services they need as victims of crime, without addressing the trauma that may have led them into some of these systems, the state systems, they remain even more vulnerable to sex trafficking, to grooming, to luring, and certainly to running away, trying to escape that harm and escape that trauma. And so providing victim services is critical. And that's in fact a trend that, trend's not the right word, it's been a considered effort for the Office for Victims of Crime, certainly over the last 3.5 years, about intentionally expanding access to services for victims, especially victims who have not always been considered victims. And we heard that in some of the panels earlier today. But deliberately expanding its programming to work with organizations that provide culturally responsive services to crime victims and survivors. This includes a new solicitation that was out this year called Meeting the Basic Needs of Crime Victims, and it also includes funding the National Center for Culturally Responsive Services. These are just two examples of how OVC has been really intentional about meeting the needs of victims of crime. Because again, if we can meet those needs, we can try to build protective factors around both women and girls in other vulnerable populations. For the last thing I'll say actually on this, because it was brought up, Shakira brought it up on the panel earlier about not even being recognized as victims of crime after death, and talked about the fact that many of the women in Cleveland weren't able to get victim compensation after that horrific incident or series of incidents with a serial killer in Cleveland, because it was said that they contributed to their own death through their own activities. OVC has put out a notice for proposed rulemaking, and we're hopeful to get that to final rule this year. That would begin to eliminate some of the subjectivity that has led to discriminatory and subjective decisions around who is and who is not a victim of crime, specifically based on perceived contributory conduct, meaning I contributed to it, and therefore I deserve whatever that victimization is. We know how that's applied is wildly subjective and discriminatory, and also around one's prior contact with the justice system not being a reason to exclude someone from compensation or assistance when they themselves are a victim. I'm sorry, I'm taking way too much time here, Linda, but there's so much good work happening across OJP. I'm going to mention a couple more. BJA implemented the National Ashanti Alert Network, which was a new law passed just a couple of years ago, specifically to help with missing adults who are too old to fit into the Amber Alert category because they've reached their 18th birthday, but do not qualify for the Silver Alert system. And so Senator Warner, following the disappearance of Ashanti Billy going missing in Virginia, put forward national legislation, federal legislation, and BJA has been responsible for the implementation of it and worked with the FCC to create a new code, which is exceedingly rare, so that can happen across jurisdictions to be able to put out an alert similar to an Amber Alert or Silver Alert. And we also have the Missing and Unidentified Human Remains program, where we are funding local jurisdictions to use forensics and other scientific aspects to be able to identify and help with the identification of missing or unidentified remains. Finally, I want to mention the National Institute of Justice. We've heard NAMUS come up a couple of times today, and the NAMUS stands for National Missing and Unidentified Persons Systems. Since its launch in 2007, it has helped resolve more than 15,000 missing and unidentified persons cases. It uses advanced forensic techniques, including forensic genetic genealogy, which I know is a conversation worthy of having, but it helps to bring closure for families, and it helps to find people who are missing, as someone said earlier, before they are murdered. And so we've got a range of work happening across our offices. I've got the privilege of speaking about the work of my colleagues, and yet also we know there's more to be done that we can do to support communities, and more that we can do to support local jurisdictions and supporting families, specifically when it comes to focusing attention on the issue of missing or murdered Black women and girls.
Thank you, Brent. I'm going to go to our sister agency, Rosie. We heard earlier today, several times, right, about the tie between gender-based violence, human trafficking, and missing or murdered Black women and girls. Can you first tell us a little bit about OVW and the programs that you support, but particularly highlight those programs that focus on reducing or preventing?
Sorry, you guys. I am back. I am back. I'm going to continue to watch a little bit of this. It won't be much. And then we're going to move on. Okay?
Violence against Black women and girls.
Well, thank you so much, Linda, for your tremendous leadership convening us all here today, and OJP and all our sister agencies that are here, but primarily to all of you in this audience, to the advocates, to the media, and first and foremost, to survivors and victims, family members. Your courage, your vision, your hope is really what is essential. It's what inspires us to keep doing this work, and it's what paints a vision for the way forward. And as you mentioned, OVW, we are tasked with implementing the Violence Against Women Act, VAWA. And we just recently commemorated the 30th anniversary of VAWA. And it was a moment, to mark the progress made, but we have much further to go. And I think what's so important as we gathered to commemorate VAWA, we centered panels with survivors, with those who'd lost their loved ones, and really centered how VAWA came about because of that. We had members of Congress and staff members, including our own Deputy Attorney General, Lisa Monaco, who at that time was on the Senate Judiciary Committee when VAWA was being written. And she said it was because of the stories and the voices and the leadership of survivors and advocates that this legislation was developed. But what's interesting about VAWA is that every time VAWA is up for reauthorization, people say, okay, what's working well that we need to scale up? But where are there gaps and barriers that we need to address? And we've come to see that there is no one-size-fits-all approach. I mean, I think it's just so crucial for us, and this is what's been so, to your point, Linda, so important about VAWA, is that with each evolution of VAWA, including VAWA 2005, that's when a new grant program was developed for culture-specific community-based organizations, realizing that while we need every DV shelter, every rape crisis center, every mainstream victim service provider to meet the needs of all survivors, we also need to recognize the huge role of culture-specific community-based organizations by and for communities of color, by and for populations that are underserved. Because as I say, those closest to the problems are closest to the solution. And people here talked about the fear, the lack of trust. That's so crucial. When we see these disproportionate rates of intimate partner violence, of sexual assault, of IPV homicide, a lot of that, and with regard to the Black community, the statistics are that Black women experience at least 3 times higher rates of IPV homicide than white women. Also with our Native American sisters, disproportionately high rates. And a lot of that is also tied to the fear and distrust of coming forward to seek help. So then things keep getting worse. And so we have seen how crucial it is to fund, and not just from a deficit approach, but actually from a strengths-based approach. What does it mean to fund community-based organizations that bring that strengths-based approach to harness that in community to address these issues and to address them more holistically? So the Culture-Specific Services Program is a grant program that's just grown exponentially.
So it's good to let people watch this, because a lot of people feel like our money, a lot of, donators are going to people that is not of this country. That's not where our money is going. And if you look at the rates of where our money is going, pay attention to the shelters that they have for DV women. Pay attention to a lot of the stuff, and just look up where our money was going. Most of our money went to government assistance alone in certain states that asked for funding and more funding last year. So it did not go towards where people thought it went. Oh, it went overseas. No, it did not. A lot of these government places with assistance, they got majority of the money, honey. And they were helping because people were in crisis. Our money didn't go to different countries. I just want to put that out there.
Increased in appropriations because of the good work, because of the advocacy, and also funding national TA providers. Just calling out a couple of them, we have UJIMA, the National Center on Violence Against Women in the Black Community. I see my colleagues back there. Also the National Organization of Sisters of Color Ending Assault, Sexual Assault, and many others, right, who are focused on how do we harness the promising practices, support the capacity building. But we see that a lot of those programs do this work more holistically as well, which is what we realize is so essential. We do need to continue doing more to train the police, to train prosecutors. We heard about those challenges when people call police, and it just, like, it breaks your heart, right? Because everyone deserves to have their response based on human dignity, that equity that's so essential. And so we do fund at OVW a number of grant programs for the police, for prosecutors, for courts. But again, we realize that if everyone's working in their silos, this does not work, because a victim's life does not exist in silos, right? They're trying to navigate so many complex systems, as well as child welfare, issues of the lack of economic justice, right? That's huge. The lack of access to safe and affordable housing, a living wage, childcare, healthcare, all those things are part of this too. Like, we really need to bring it all in together. And so when we were commemorating the 30th anniversary of VAWA, a key theme was what we call the coordinated community response. And that has been a hallmark of this bipartisan landmark legislation, was we need to fund, we need to bring people together in a coordinated community response. But over time, it became more a coordinated systems response. And we do need that, but it has to be a coordinated community response. So who's at that table? And our advocates who spoke earlier said it, it's so importantly, that your voices at the table are so crucial. And we have seen that makes a difference. So at OVW, we have put.
That is so true. But then as a Black community, I want us to start asking if most of our money is going towards the U.S. of all, the whole America. Let's be honest. It's going towards the government assistance. They're putting it towards helping people in shelters. They're putting it towards helping them get jobs, get clothes, put these people in apartments. The question is, and a lot of y'all be like, oh, it's illegals. No. And I'm going to be so honest. Most of them are basically local people in your city who got misplaced. They lost their job, or they need help getting on their feet, or they're running away, and in a lot of domestic violence. Let me tell you something. When I first got here and I had a conversation with a lady, she said she went to a shelter with her children because her husband put his hands on her. And it helped her get her job where she's at now. It helped her get her place. It helped her get on food stamps and Medicaid. This isn't a Black woman. This is a white woman, okay? All races are going through this. I've been talked to Black women who have went to shelters that help put them in places. They are putting them in places because they need help getting off their feet. What we need to start asking this question is, why is it that they're getting on there, especially mostly women with children, are going through this, when we sit here and say, oh, that didn't happen to them. Oh, that, this and that. And it be real women who go through these real things. This is my question to the Black community as a whole too. Why is it okay to groom young girls to be this way and that way for a man, but we're not grooming and talking to these young men to be certain ways for women, to where this won't keep happening? And we also need to ask, why does this keep happening? What is the discorrelation with the jobs? I mean, we're seeing it now, but what really is the discorrelation? So I know we're resting. Okay, I get it. What is it? We can't rest when it comes to children. But what is it that we can do? We're not worried about knowing most of the legals, okay? Or we that's undermined. I told y'all what my thoughts was with the legals, especially in Detroit and Chicago. Most of y'all got Black-owned businesses. That is your tax credit. That's your tax write-off. That's more money in your pocket and in your business. But y'all didn't want to listen to me. The question is, what is it we can do to keep this from being a generational thing in the long run so the next generation can run? You know what I'm saying? What is it we can do to teach our children to protect themselves from being missing or have things and not be scared to have these things and educate on weapons and, you know, things to protect us? What can we do so the generation can know what to do?
Put advancing equity as a primary priority across all our grants. We call our grantees to look at who's at the table and make sure and be intentional. And actually in our grants themselves saying, who are you bringing to the table that is representing the populations historically marginalized or underserved, most disproportionately impacted. And we're seeing great progress where that is being done well. I recently had a chance to go down to Birmingham, Alabama, just saw tremendous what it meant for people to really come together in a robust coordinated community response, including the Family Justice Center, including culturally specific community-based organizations. And at the federal, state, local level, look at the intersections with community violence as well, looking at the intersection with firearms for cases that are highly lethal. And so we are funding some special initiatives as well, through, in particular with our firearms training and TA project, where we picked 12 pilot sites across the country and said to them, come together as when we convened all 12 of them to hear how it's going. And it's not easy to work, right? With everyone at the table. And you know, like my kids are always like, oh, I hate group projects. Can I just do where we see where the good work, the effective work is happening. And one example was DeKalb, Georgia, where they brought in community-based organizations working with the Black community to be a part of their FTAP project. And they realized, some of the law enforcement and prosecutors said, you don't know what you don't know. And we realized that there was real reason why there was fear and distrust, a real lack of understanding also how were we increasing pathways to support and to safety, to justice, and to healing. And so it's in bringing those people together where we are seeing this. So we are being very intentional about both funding the groups, but calling this in as part of the CCR. OVW also has been putting out important guidance for law enforcement on identifying and preventing gender bias in policing. We have to name it. You all have talked about it as well. There's gender bias at times in the ways that victims of intimate partner violence or sexual assault are treated. And then when you look at that at the intersection with race and gender, or race, gender, and sexual orientation or gender identity, right? It's additional layers of barriers to safety and justice and healing. So through this guidance that we've put out, identifying promising practices, and then funding, for example, I know IACP, police, and others, to see how do we work to better train and support this work in effective ways. And we recently have a new grant program through VAWA 22 called the Abby Honnold Program, which is about trauma-informed approaches to policing and investigations, and really being more intentional now, funding a number of sites, evaluating and trying to develop better curriculums to address that. But also with prosecutors. We heard from law enforcement, a lot of them are like, well, we don't really investigate because the prosecutors don't prosecute. And the prosecutors are like, well, you know, we don't really prosecute because then the judge and juries don't really convict. So we go all across the line. We have a lot of work to do in society as a whole. But each you know, part of the CCR is essential. So just this past May at the Crimes Against Women Conference, we released a new prosecution framework developed by and for prosecutors with community input, victim input, input of advocates.
Okay. So, you guys can go look on the Department of Justice and check that out. I'm sorry, y'all. You guys can go look at the Office of Justice Programs.gov. They have the video, or you can look it up on YouTube. It details everything there. With the video. Give me a minute. Hold on, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. So that's the majority of what their plans are. I'm sorry, in a minute. They're trying to see, and I think what they're gonna start, I don't know if it's gonna pass right now. It's probably on hold. They probably tried to get it to pass, but they're trying to come up with the fundings and things like that to help where there's more funding for, SNP dolls and things of that nature to help find Black missing women and children. That's what they're trying to do. And, that's what the thing is. Give me a minute. Hold on. So that's the thing. Hold on. Then you have Essence with Beyond the Hoax. Trying to see. Let's go look into. Let's see Black women missing in the South. Let's see what we can pull up. Oh, wow. Okay, so examples of Black, because I went looking and I guess AI, it says Black women and girls in the South are disproportionately affected by I'm sorry, disproportionately affected by violence, trafficking, and systematic neglect, which leads to the high rates of disappearance. You have Deborah and Jesse, Avis Anderson, both were missing out of Florida. One was missing when Fred was murdered. From Florida, who was last seen when residence 2020. You have Tarsha Benjamin from Selma, Alabama, who went missing from visiting a flea market. You have Emily Victoria Benjamin missing in Virginia. You have Javita Brockington, a woman who was last seen headed to Atlantic City, New Jersey. There are plenty of things of that nature. You know what? While we sitting here, we're gonna look up some of these one of these stories. Let's go. I think I'm going to choose Deborah and Jesse. Hold on. Deborah Ann Jesse, who went missing in Florida, and her friend was unalived as well. So this was 11 years ago, and we're going to play it. This was in Pocahontas. Yep. And then they found her. Okay. We're going to play. We're going to play the first one. And let's see. Copyright disclaimer on Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976 allows is made for fair use. For use of purpose such as criticism, comment, news, reporting, teaching, scholarship, or research. So this is for fair use, y'all. This is for education purpose only. We're doing education, you too. Okay, we're gonna play hers first, and we're gonna go to another one. And I believe they found her boyfriend who did it.
Look, from the very beginning, football's been a conspiracy to make us hungry.
After this, before we leave, I do want to share a personal story. I don't know if I did put it in my video of my friend before we leave. She wasn't missing, but she was unalive as a Black woman.
Now, let me tell you where it all started.
And we'll call this.
Also in Pahokee, we are following a developing story. Investigators are looking for a missing mother they say is in danger after just filing a restraining order against her ex-boyfriend. News Channel 5's Brian Enton is live in Pahokee with the latest for this midday. Brian.
Keely, we are right in front of this missing woman's house here in Pahokee. Her family has been coming out nonstop, checking around the house, trying to find her. But I want you to listen carefully to this. Police are very, very concerned. Today, this woman had a hearing scheduled where she was filing a restraining order against a man in her life that she says abuses her the same day that now she has gone missing. Take a good look at her picture. This is 23-year-old Deborah Jesse, last seen at a friend's house over the weekend. Detectives say they are extremely concerned for her safety right now. Chopper 5 over Palm Beach Golf Center in Riviera Beach this morning, where investigators say they found Deborah's car abandoned. Her family says her car is the Lincoln SUV. Right now, this family in a panic.
I'm totally worried about her. This is not like Deborah not to talk to us. It's not like Deborah to come find it. It's not like Deborah not to call my mom. She gonna call my mom every day, and Deborah's not been seen anywhere.
This is the man, according to the injunction for protection against domestic violence, that Deborah was trying to file this restraining order against. Jamie Washington, according to court documents, she says he beats her and recently told her, if you call the police, I will beat the hell out of you and I will give a reason for me to go to jail. So you see what the concern is here. I want to point something out, though, Keely. I just got off the phone with the sheriff's office. They say that they have talked to this man and that, you know, he's not a suspect right now so far. He has been cooperative and he did do an interview with police. If you've seen Deborah, make sure to call the sheriff's office. Live in Pahokee, Brian Enton, WPTV News Channel 5.
Okay. Let's look at Avis Anderson. And that's sad that, you know, they did find her. They found Deborah's car, and they found her missing car. You know what? Let me see if she was found. Let me wait till this load. And this was 11 years ago in Florida. Let me see. Hold on. Okay, sorry, y'all. Let me see if she was ever found. Deborah and Jesse. Found. They never found her. I think they found her body. They found. Try to get. Yep, she was found, y'all. They did find her. Let's see if I can pull it up. Deborah and Jesse kept in touch with family every day, even after she moved to Poca to Vera Beach. Her father, Larry Young, told the 14-person jury that he found out she didn't meet with her cousin on June 23rd, 2013, a family friend's home before church as planned, and had returned any calls that he became a concern. Deborah family members went to the friend's home and found 57-year-old Crystal, Miss Chris Anderson, fatally unalive. He said that they stopped fatally hurt. He said that they started looking for his daughter, went to the cane fields, canals, buildings where we could find her. The mother of four has never been found. I thought they found her, my bad. Witness testimony continued Tuesday from family investigators in the first degree unaliving trial of Jamie Washington before Circuit Judge Joseph Martins. 35-year-old is charged with 2 counts of first degree, 1 count of burglary, while armed in the fatal shooting of Anderson in the presumed unaliving of Jesse. There was lack of evidence, as his attorney said, but the state attorney made sure he got charged. He thought that Ramirez said the woman he thought could help him didn't practice voodoo. So he tried to put voodoo on her. He tried to put voodoo on her. He tried to put voodoo on her to get her back, and it didn't work, and it backfired. So this is a love spell he tried to put on her, and come to find out the love spell backfired and jumped. You know, this is why you don't do. This is why you leave that alone. So she was never found. Never found. Okay, so eventually he went to home with Jesse's stepmother. Knocked on the door, response. He knocked on the back door, no answer. He knows the back door was unlocked. Though he opened it, he said he didn't get an answer. Hold on. Her car was gone. Her family suspected that she was unalived. Well, he did. Wait, hold on. Let me read this right, y'all. I think he went. So the lady he shot, which was Anderson, was deceased, and she was in a pool of blood when they found her. The lady, the babysitter. Okay. Another story I want to share before I go, because we'll be on here for 2 hours. Well, I had a friend. She wasn't missing, but she was unalived by her boyfriend, who she shared 3 children with. I've shared this story before. I wanted to share. I don't think I'm gonna share, but it's down in my timeline for like 2-3 years ago. Similar story, DV story. She was found. Here's the thing. A lot of these young children and women go missing with people that they know or unalived. And I feel as though I've said this countless time again. I'm gonna say it again. Please be careful who you have your children around, who you're allowed to be around, and who your partner is friends with. And make sure you know every ins and out of your community. You don't know who is what, who, you just don't know. It's very sad, and I'm so glad that the Department of Justice, I'm not sure they're continuing it, because what we have in office at this point. But the Department of Justice is trying to do things for Black women. Let me see if there's any organizations in Atlanta. Let's see. They do have Black and Missing Foundation, Our Black Girls in Atlanta. They cover the advocates of missing people of color. They help families, media. Let's see. And I think this is, and there is a website. Hold on. Let me pull this website up. I do want to share some organizations for other people. This ain't even in Atlanta, but this is a whole website. We're going to go to it. Our Black Girls, Stories of Missing, Murdered, and Mistreated. Okay, so you have Portia King, 24, of Houston, vanished after leaving home in 2023. Hazel Smith in Atlanta, 1993. Lori Page, 12, reward offer in girls missing persons case. You have Donita Lavard Sneed, 32, admits to being located children. Violet Maturi, missing after house fire in 1977. Tarnika Raymond, 13, last season in New Orleans. You have Tanisha Watkins, 2, vanished in 1980 for a while playing in front of a yard. There it is. Oh, wait, hold on. No. Wait, let me stop sharing. Let me go. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing. Wait a minute. Before we go, it's called Home OBG, Our Black Girls. Okay. Erica Joseph unalived herself and 9-year-old daughter Akila Joseph. You have, look at all of these people. Look. Found shot middle of the street, Lyric Brown. Missing in 2014. Missing in Florida. Cold cases. This is the whole website, y'all. There's a story, and I follow this young lady. And shout out to the Black Cauldron. I love her videos. Hold on. And I've started following this, subscribe to her. It is another young lady. I'm gonna have to look up her story. She went missing she was on Calls and Beyond, and she went missing. And she started telling her story, how she never felt the connection with her family in Chicago. And hold on, let me see if I can find her, y'all. Because I really want to share her story. And I want y'all to. And she was saying how she never felt the connection, and she had it's a voodoo person that came to her when her aunt passed, and he had to tell her she's very let me go look it up. She's very spiritual, and she was basically saying that, you know, he came and told her with her auntie that she took her from her. And it was a big thing to where, like, someone in her Tucket family that took her, they basically was, gosh, come on, Alicia. They basically was with the police department, and it was hidden. And when they came out and found her, they found out that she got took from Atlanta when she was like a young kid. I have to find it. I'm gonna find it, y'all. Give me a minute, because I'm gonna show it to y'all. This is back in October, I believe. Okay, here we go. I found it. No. Dang it. And I follow this young lady because she talks about it all the time. Oh man, give me a minute, y'all. Y'all can sit here with me. I'm gonna find it, and I'm gonna share you her name. It's just on my heart to share it with y'all. And I heard her story. I said, what? And how she had to get to know who she was again and her real family. She's still looking for them. And I hope she finds them. And I think she found some of them. And it was all over the news that she was taken. And the lady that called herself her aunt was not her aunt. She went to the funeral, and a lot of people didn't recognize her, and they didn't know she was family. The lady was evil towards her. She went through a lot of abuse. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna find it. But she went through a lot of that. And go on that page. I wish I could find it. I'm gonna find it. Call from Beyond. Y'all gotta go follow them. And they have some great call-ins, and you will be surprised if you're into like scary stories and stuff like that. You'll be surprised. But this particular woman, I'm gonna find her while we on live right now. This particular woman told her story. She told her story. Let me see if I can go to Black Cauldron. I know she has it. She told her story, and her story was so just like, oh my God. And Black Cauldron was like, oh my God. Like, it was such a beautiful story. And where is it, y'all? I feel like I'm getting close. How many months was October? I gotta count. February. Hold on. Lord Jesus. October, February. It's 5 months. She has it. And I need to look up a post for 5 months ago. I'm sorry. But yes, this story is so beautiful, and I want to share it with y'all. No, not Jay Wesley. Jay Wesley was on there. Shout out to Jay Wesley. Shout out to Black Cauldron and the Cause from Beyond. And I hope they see this and they can put in what video it was. I'm not sure what video it was. I'm going to find it. And I'm going to put it in my community, on my post, my community post for you guys. Oh, man, I need y'all to look at that story. I hope you guys enjoy this live. We will be back tomorrow morning early for, might be tonight. We'll see. And we're going to discuss missing while in the North and Midwest. So we're going to check out New York City. We're going to do Midwest and the West. So we're going to do New York City, the Midwest, Detroit, Chicago. We're going to trickle down to, we're going to do Colorado. We're going to go to Utah. We're going to go to Vegas, California, New Mexico, Arizona. We're going to go through those missing while Black. And then Tuesday, we will be back with Missing While Black in America. So this is going to be a little series, 3-day series. And we're going to talk about tomorrow, remember, tonight, the North, going to the North side, the Midwest, and the West. And then we're going to do it as a whole. We're not going to leave it with just the U.S., y'all. We're going to trickle down to overseas. We're going to go to Africa, UK. We're even going to go to the islands. We're going to take it there because some of their missions is a little different than ours. We're going to take it there. So if you guys see this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. We're going to go all over the world with the missing. It might get a little spiritual. It might get a little eager to the spiritual world. But we're going to go there because the island's a little more different than ours. We're going to do a little comparisons with theirs too. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Get to like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you guys for your support. Thank you for watching. And if you have any missing stories you want to talk about, anyone you know who went missing, I don't care if they're from the islands, wherever, send them to me. DM me at, hold on, if you watch the playback, let me make a banner where you can DM me, okay? Hold on. He's getting yelled at. Y'all don't mind. Milo acting up. Milo got to get fixed soon. You can DM me on IG. I'm going to type it in here. Facebook. Ask for that to tab. Oh. Facebook. Or you can email me. Give you my other one. You guys wanted to discuss it. Okay, we can discuss it. You guys watch the playback. This will be on there. If you want to email me, DM me, whatever stories y'all want to talk about, let me know, or you can just simply comment in the comment section. I want to thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys had a great time just like I did, and we're going to continue this going forward. Have a great Sunday.